I used to spend a lot of time in front of the TV playing video games as a teenager. Though as I got older, I found that they were taking up too much of my time. Because of this, I cut down on my gaming time until I was able to completely stop. However, I have lately made an effort to plan in more free time. So I decided to give gaming another go. I recalled how wonderful video games are. It didn't take long for the day's conclusion to become something I eagerly anticipated. Simply so I could play a game online. However, this has also left me puzzled. The appeal of such games is hard to pin down. Can I take any of the lessons from the game and apply them to my real life, so as to increase their appeal? What I've discovered is as follows. The majority of games are designed in a manner that, at certain points, dopamine is constantly released by our brain. Many of you probably already know this, but I'll explain it anyhow. One such neurotransmitter is dopamine, which has been linked to feelings of desire. Why we tend to engage in the same routines again and over again. And the reasons we choose to act on those motivations. Dopamine is like dangling a carrot from a stick, if you will. We'll go wherever the carrot leads. And video games excel at dangling that carrot in front of you at all times. Role-playing games, or RPGs, are a popular example of this. Where you may level up a character you create and explore a digital environment. I've found that these games have a certain kind of addictive quality that makes them hard to put down. An instinctual trail of dopamine. There are several moving parts to the game that repeatedly cause a surge of dopamine to be produced. With this added challenge, we're not going to grow tired of the game and will be more motivated to keep going. Now that I've isolated the 5 constituents of this dopamine path, you can reproduce in your own life if you can. For the sake of clarity, I'll use role-playing games as an example since they are the most like real life. Some games could be missing some of the features I'll be discussing, but I'm willing to bet that most have at least a couple. Let's analyze these constituent parts. Let's look at some ways you might steer the carrot and make your personal routines more enticing. It's essential, first and foremost, to keep a goal in mind at all times. Furthermore, you are aware of the appropriate action to take. To save a princess or eliminate a dragon, for example. Not that it makes any difference. Knowing where you have to go is the most crucial part. However, in reality, many of us lack a clear sense of purpose. Also, although it's true that we may take cues from others around us, this isn't the same as deciding on our own course. Whether it's completing a marathon, climbing the corporate ladder, or writing your first novel. With a target in mind, you can direct your efforts more effectively. If not, your efforts will be completely pointless. Even while slaying the dragon is the objective, you won't have to concentrate too hard on it throughout gameplay. Instead, it is divided into smaller milestones along the way. You may start by retrieving the king's lost jewelry. Then you solve a wizard's potion-making dilemma. Every time we do anything, no matter how little, when we succeed, we feel good about ourselves. The more successful we feel, the more successful we want to feel. This, in essence, generates a feedback cycle in which even a little amount of accomplishment is met with a surge of dopamine and renewed determination to succeed. Which leads to even greater achievements. Despite the fact that we haven't yet slain the dragon, we have accomplished something of great value. Pointing in that general direction. So that's all that truly counts, because if we keep doing that, I have no doubt that major objective will be completed. Example sub-goals for a project like writing a book may be as follows. Develop a plan for each chapter. Create an artwork for the book's jacket. Generate at least 1,000 words. Improve 1 page of text. There is always room for refinement, but I hope you get the gist. The goal is to accomplish something that will get you closer to your ultimate goal and set off a chain reaction of successes. Now, objectives are crucial given the second fundamental feature of video games. Which is to say, development may be seen. The filling up of the experience meter in a video game is a clear indication of your progress. You never hear, you're 0.7% closer to level 100 than you think. That's not the way to encourage people to work hard. Rather, it displays your progress to level 2 and tells you that you are 70% there. This observable development provides the inspiration to keep plugging forward. It's easy to rationalize staying logged in for a few more minutes simply to unlock that next level. However, the catch is that frequently many progress bars are being filled up simultaneously. In such a way that by the time you achieve level 3 in one talent, you're virtually level 5 in another. When you reach level 5 in one game, you'll be almost at level 4 in the other. When you'll be reminded that you're almost done with something, causing you to want to keep playing even after you've had your fill. However, in the actual world, advancement is seldom that evident, and you must actively make it noticeable. Keeping a log of what you accomplish each day is among the most effective strategies I've come across for doing just that. It's important to keep track of the steps you've taken each day that get you closer to your objectives. If you've already written 100 words for a book, record that. Put down on paper that you ran 3 miles as part of your training. Please record your 1-hour study session. Plus, if you skipped Starbucks and saved yourself $10, put it in writing. That way, your progress, or lack thereof, will be plain to see. And it's easy to see whether you're progressing toward your ultimate or intermediate objectives. You'll be more driven to work toward your goals if you can really see yourself getting closer to achieving at least one of them. Must keep going so that you may cross the finish line. The third essential factor is confidence in one's own development. The point being that in games, your hard work is rewarded. When you accomplish a level or mission, you usually get a reward. Also, these benefits will encourage you to finish the work you've started. Why go through the trouble of slaying a dragon if there is no reward for doing so? Maybe not, but probably not. But since you may earn rewards by performing the tasks, you keep doing so. One of the most effective ways to motivate people in the real world is to promise them a reward if they meet certain criteria. Your brain deliberately produces an abundance of dopamine. You do something, like studying, with the knowledge that after you're done, motivating yourself to complete a work when you know you'll be able to enjoy a pleasure afterward may be done guilt-free is simple. The reward, however, always pays you back in some way in video games. When you vanquish an adversary, you can get a more formidable blade. You've leveled up and can take on and win against tougher foes. Essentially, the reward you get improves your gaming experience. The game is engaging, and you'll want to keep going. And that's something a lot of us do wrong. After 7 days of following a healthy diet and 5 workouts at the gym, we will see significant results. Yes, we should be rewarded. But instead of a reward that doubles as a reward, we often choose a punishment that undoes our hard work. As a treat, we sit on the sofa and devour the whole cake. Which, when you give it some thought, isn't the best course of action. The player completes a task but instead of progressing in the game, they suffer a penalty. Worsening of your numbers, etc. This never occurs. Unfortunately, it's a common occurrence in everyday life. What are we going to do with our savings? We treat ourselves to a shiny new phone we don't need or some other unnecessary luxury. We should put that money through an asset which will return some of its value to us. This will pave the way for increased earnings and cost savings in the long run. Also, if you're a runner like me, you may treat yourself to a fresh pair of kicks for your efforts. In addition to making the runs more bearable, this kind of incentive has the added benefit of strengthening the habit of going for runs regularly. Consequently, take stock of where you are in life and seek out a perk that gives back in some way. Or at least ensure that it doesn't get in the way of your development. However, you may have noticed that not every game has the same payout structure. Sometimes, instead of a better blade, you'll be given better armor. Occasionally, it's a brand new spell, etc. So now we get to the fourth fundamental aspect of the game. Change and originality. The best games surprise us with fresh content often. It may be access to a brand new zone, a terrifying new foe, or even simply a few fresh outfits. The more original and different an experience is, the more it will excite and captivate our minds. It still has its allure and gratification value. Imagine if you had to keep playing the same stage over and over again and never got to see anything new in the game. It's not something the majority of us would like doing. Rapid boredom and a desire to give up would ensue if we continued to do the same tasks day in and day out. This is also true in the course of our regular lives. Adding a twist to the routine might help us maintain a habit over the long haul. If you are currently employed, consider your first day on the job. It's possible that you didn't see your work as tedious, but rather as exciting. There were many interesting individuals to get to know and much information to absorb. After a year, though, the excitement would have worn off and the routine would have set in. It's boring since it's become normal and there's nothing exciting left to do. Working the same shift, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, is a lot like playing the same video game level over and over again. Since you are aware of what to anticipate, there is nothing exciting to look forward to. Despite the fact that I advocate for establishing regular habits. Within that schedule, some variety is also beneficial. If you often end yourself doing the same thing, try switching things up by taking on something new. In order to shake things up a little. Something unfamiliar is ideal since it presents a fresh challenge. Now, although it's true that you may not be able to shift your workplace practices directly, new details that are still relevant may be added at any time. This is inside your sphere of influence. An example of this would be forming a friendship with a coworker that you typically wouldn't talk to. Perhaps a desk reshuffle might help. It may be as simple as trying a new place for lunch. In other words, a major shift is not necessary. Neither is a long-term commitment necessary. The aim is just to try something different once in a while. Altering your training program by adding a new physical activity is another option. Find a new place to study if you need to keep working on schoolwork. Try to find some little method to shake up your routine. This brings us to the fifth and last fundamental feature of games. Is that you're constantly pressed to your limits. The human mind enjoys the challenge of striving to solve problems and succeeding in doing so. However, you won't have fun unless the degree of challenge is appropriate for your skill set. You won't even care about doing them. The task at hand must strike a balance between being too difficult and being too simple. You don't immediately take on the ultimate badass as a level 1 character. This is much above your ability level, so you'll always end up on the losing end. To top it all off, you probably wouldn't want to keep playing if it was too challenging. The reason why the game starts you out with the easier enemies is because of this. In other words, the ones you can truly win over. However, as your skill levels increase, so will the game's challenge. Otherwise, there would be no incentive to become better if the difficulty never changed. Maintain your performance. When you can easily destroy anything in your path, the challenge is taken out of the experience. If you were playing, you would soon get bored because of how simple it was. The difficulty of the obstacle should be moderate, so that the sense of accomplishment upon its completion is genuine. Be pleased with yourself and experience the rush of dopamine that comes from doing something difficult and succeeding. While ideal tests are uncommon, they do occur in the actual world. Instead, we're often either completely overwhelmed or completely bored by them. If you're having trouble motivating yourself to perform a certain task because it seems too daunting, you probably need to break it down into smaller steps, higher than your existing capability. In the beginning, you need to pause and take things slowly. Reduce the size of that massive undertaking by dividing it up into smaller, more manageable chunks. Then break it down into its component parts, starting with the simplest. This not only makes things easier, but also sets the ball rolling. When anything becomes too simple, the difficulty level must be raised. Although it is preferable to avoid them, there are occasions when simple activities must be completed. Putting time constraints on them is one way that I up the ante and make them more challenging for myself. In order to get things done, I set a timer and aim to finish before it goes off. By being compelled to discover a more time-effective method, I am able to complete the task at hand more quickly. Later on in time, I'm still engaged in the same tedious task, but now there's more of a time crunch than ever before. Heightens the challenge, which in turn increases the enjoyment. Adjust the degree of challenge to your ability. When you give yourself the opportunity, you'll discover that you're much more invested in the process. And the appeal of the action will increase. You should have a lot better idea at this point of what causes video games so engaging. You could also observe that without them, we aren't as invested in the game. Irresistibility in games is not limited to the 5 I've listed, there are many more. The social element, which fosters both teamwork and individualism, is only one example. And there's also the possibility of listening to some enjoyable background music. Alternatively, we may get a sense of independence and mastery over the situation thanks to the game. On the other hand, I didn't want to analyze every detail since I was just interested in the most common ones to be found in role-playing games, as they most closely mimic real life. It's also worth noting that all of these components are used in video games at breakneck speeds, resulting in a flood of dopamine, to the point that our regular routines can't keep up. However, this does not excuse you from trying to recreate the dopamine path. It's crucial that you put it into action, since else you'll only end up being dragged toward the source of the greatest supply of dopamine. It's crucial that you use these 5 components in the aspects of your life that you value the most. You can now steer the carrot using this method. And you'll be successful in every endeavor you undertake. If you've stuck around this far in the video, I simply wanted to tell you that you rock. Please consider using the like button on the video's description page. This demonstrates to YouTube's system that these kinds of ideas are valuable and should be promoted. Reach a wider audience through my writing. That more individuals may take use of it, enriching their lives. Thank you for